Welcome back. You're watching Newsx. My name is Vineet. US President Donald Trump has signed an order to extend talks with China on trade by 90 days while he imposes 50% tariff on India. The order was signed right before the deadline was about to expire, and Washington and Beijing had slapped escalating tariffs on each other's exports in April, reaching prohibitive triple-digit levels. But both sides reached an agreement to temporarily lower them after negotiations in Geneva, and this deadline now buys time for both countries to work out their differences. In April, US President Donald Trump increased his tariffs on Chinese goods to 145%. China then imposed retaliatory duties of 125% on imports from the United States. The main reason for Trump to do so is said to be China's control of 90% of global processing of rare earth materials, whereas a negotiation with India is still awaited after he cited the reason for increase in tariff to be its oil trade with Russia. He stated, and I quote, "India is not only buying massive amounts of Russian oil, they are then, for much of the oil purchased, selling it on the in the open market for big profits. They don't care how many people in Ukraine are being killed by the Russian war machine. Because of this, I will be substantially raising the tariff paid by India to the United States." Let's talk about this and the veracity of some of these claims by Donald Trump. Ambassador Suresh Kumar Goel, former diplomat, with us on the show. Professor Madhav Nalapat, editorial director of the Sunday Guardian, also joins us. Dr. Sharat Kohli, senior economist, with us on the program as well. And last but by no means the least, Mr. Shrikant Kondapalli, professor of Chinese at JNU, is joining us on the broadcast as well. Professor Nalapat, I'll begin with you. Well, if you want to have a ray of hope, let's also look at what happened between the Americans and the Chinese in the last few months. There was an exchange of inane amounts of tariffs slapped on each other. There were negotiations that happened in Geneva, as I just read out in my monologue, and now they've come to a situation where there could be some sense prevailing. Is this the trajectory that the Indo-American negotiations are also headed for, if we go by that hope? Professor Nalapat.
Look, let me be a little contrarian here. And yes, it's easy to abuse President Trump. I mean, I have, very, very frankly, I have also been flummoxed by his behavior. And I've made it very plain, both to readers of Sunday Guardian as well as to viewers of television channels. But having said that, let me point out one more fact. And that is that I've been talking to my friends in Washington who are very hardcore Republican, hardcore supporters of President Trump, Trump 2.0. First of all, 2.0 is very different from 1.0. Almost everybody who was close to him during 1.0 moved away from him in the 4 years of persecution, thinking that he's gone, he's never going to come back to power. And lo and behold, like a miracle, the President Trump comes back to power. And now you have Trump 2.0. The reality is, therefore, he basically detests those people who were with him in the first term and who deserted him during his 4 years in the wilderness when he was being, as I've written, persecuted. I mean, you can say prosecuted, but if you check my reports, I'm one of the people who basically stood by President Trump, ex-President Trump, during those 4 years, although Biden was a legally elected president. So I would like to say, and the second problem is, I'd like to flag here is, the Trump people, I mean, the new Trump people, Trump 2.0, they don't like officials at all. So the problem is that in our diplomacy, it's almost always carried out by officials. When you have think tanks, they basically reflect the official point of view. So the problem is the Trump people, they don't like officials. They like non-officials who have been sticking with them right from the beginning during the 4 years out of power, and who speak in an idiom they respect and they like. And you can argue with them, you can criticize them, but if they feel that you're one of them, that doesn't matter. They're not going to mind it at all. Whereas if they feel you're an outsider to the game, even praise is brushed aside and any criticism is taken very personally. So I would only like to be a contrarian here and say we need to improve our game in Washington, D.C. the Trump 2.0 has a very small group of inner circle, mostly family, a few close friends, and a few people like Tulsi Gabbard, for example, R.F. Kennedy, for example, who bolted from the Democratic Party and who joined him in his years in the wilderness. And you remember Tulsi Gabbard, the day after she announced that she was against Hillary Clinton, they put her on a watch list for suspected terrorism. Tulsi Gabbard as a suspected terrorist. How much more ridiculous can you get in your persecution? So I would only like to say, and I know I'm being contrarian here, we're going to hear a lot of nasty things said about President Trump. I have said a lot about it during Trump 2.0, but I would also like to point out that I think we need to, as the Americans say, up our game in Washington. And I don't want to repeat what my friends in the Trump 2.0 have been telling me about the influence of India in Washington in the small circle of people around Donald Trump. There's no point throwing cocktail parties, no point inviting hundreds of people. There are only about three dozen or 4 dozen people maximum at most. I think probably much less than that. Maybe we're 2 dozen, I would say, who are really hardcore believed in by Trump and his small group of advisors. So unless they're at their cocktail party, and frankly, rather than a cocktail party, a dinner party, an informal dinner party, you're in trouble in Washington. So I just want to say, Vineet, we need to do some soul searching ourselves, and we need to, as they say, up the game in Washington, because the kind of words I've heard used about our influence operations in Washington, I don't want to repeat them here, but the Chinese are very good at their game. They're spending billions of dollars. We don't need to do that. They're spending tens of billions of dollars. According to my friends, the estimate is between 20 and 30 billion dollars. And many of these fronts for China don't even know they're fronts for China. Many of them pretend to be, a second group of them pretend to be anti-Chinese, but actually they know they're working for the Chinese, for CCP. So they have spent such a lot of money. We don't have to spend that kind of money. We don't have that kind of money. But the problem is that Pakistan for a long time has figured out how Washington works, and they keep changing. Whenever the power players change, they immediately adjust to the power players. And of course, it's not Pakistan's game, it is the Chinese game. The Chinese are our opponents and adversaries, and they are the main threat to America and to us. And I can tell you, Trump people realize that, they recognize that, and therefore we have got a great story to tell, but you have to tell it to the right channel. I mean, if I've got some problem in, let's say, in my accountancy, I'm not going to talk to myself or to you. I'm going to talk to Dr. Sharath Kohli. So I think that is necessary for us again. Let's turn the searchlight on ourselves also a little bit. And of course, as far as President Trump is concerned, yes, I mean, I've been among those who have, but if you check Sunday Guardian, if you check Newsx, you'll find they have carried voices who are very critical of the persecution of Donald Trump during the 4 years out of power. Very, very critical of him. And I think those are the voices that we need to basically deploy when we talk about meeting the challenge of China in influence operations in Washington, D.C. Vineet.
Fair enough, sir. Ambassador Goel, your perspective here. Let's not forget that these are tariff numbers which will make it very hard for India to deal with the Americans at a number of levels and trades. But this could also be, a part of a chapter in the book, The Art of the Deal, which Donald Trump wrote in the 80s. Is this something which can be considered as an option rather than a finality when it comes to Donald Trump?
All right, Vinit, I'm not going to be nasty towards Trump at all, really. Trump is a good fellow, I must say. He is a good fellow because he knows his mind. The problem is that nobody else knows his mind. And therefore, whenever he does something, it remains very inexplicable to all of the others. And till we know really that we don't know what is it. If you recall, Vinny, right in the early days of Trump coming as a president, and when we were rejoicing in Delhi here, saying that, oh, Trump, uh, we know his views on China, and therefore we know that in Indo-Pacific, India's star is on the rise, etc., etc., etc. And I said even at that time that Trump is a deal maker. For Trump, if he finds that he can make a deal with China, whether it is in terms of the electrical vehicles or is it of critical minerals, something that he knows that he depends on China for and he can't do anything else. If he makes a deal with China, he will make a deal with China, and then the geopolitics of Indo-Pacific, India versus China, etc., etc., will all go for a six. I think we depended on perceived animosity of the USA toward China rather unreasonably and in a not really calculated and reasonable manner. We should have realized that Trump will deal with any country or any person if he knows that there is something in it for him. You look at Pakistan, look at China, whatever it is. If today Trump has extended the low tariff by another 90 days, it's simply because he has not been able to find alternative supplies for the critical minerals from anywhere else. He, if he is able to let China overtake the American market with their electrical vehicles produced by Xiaomi, it's simply because Elon Musk is not able to produce electrical vehicles at the same price as China does. Elon Musk, when he came Dodge, Department of Government Efficiency, Ramaswamy and Elon Musk came to head the department. And where are they today? Therefore, first of all, let us understand that Trump has his own mind. His mind is that of a businessman. He will look at what we talk about Trump properties in India. What has he done? He has not invested a single dollar from his own funds. He's simply lending his brand name, Trump properties. And he's collecting the money from his partners in India for giving them the brand name. He's making his billions that way. One thing that we need to understand that Trump will turn to India again if he finds that he can do business with India, which has a profit for him, or which has some advantage for him. Now, it is not now, but sooner or later, again, he will turn to India because he will again find that there are some certain products like iPhone. iPhones, if you make in the USA at $2,000 a piece, they're not going to sell. He will have no option but then either China, Vietnam, or India. So let us see what happens. The point really here is that we need to basically also diversify our production, our products, and our markets. We can't just depend upon one market and say that, yes, we have made it. Trump is not going to be an all-weather friend as we assume it to be.
Okay. Dr. Kohli?
Yes.
All right. Dr. Kohli, what's your opinion? Do you think that Trump's intentions are clear at this point in time? He's just troubling India so that we come on a table which is, at an equal standing and footing whereas trade is concerned, and this is obviously a larger part of his Make America Great Again philosophy?
Good evening, Vineet. Good evening to my fellow panelists and Newsx viewers. I respect Professor Nalapat's editorial intellect and capabilities. I have highest regards for him. I also have high regards for the diplomatic experience of Ambassador Goel, which he has, oodles of experience behind him. But seeking due apology, I would like to completely differ. I have no soft corner for Donald Trump. I have no qualms in making this statement. This man, what he's doing is against the diplomatic principles. This is against the trade principles. This is against the principles of how you deal with countries, how you deal with at the diplomatic level. when he says that India will not be able to, Russia will have to pay the price for exporting oil to India, or India will not be able to export oil from Russia anymore, I think he's blatantly wrong. Indian government is very firm. We are not going to stop our dealings with Russia. If we are getting $2 to $3 cheaper than the market or whatever, at least we are not going to succumb under pressure from Donald Trump on Russia, or because these 50% tariffs have been levied. We are not going to succumb to that pressure. We are a sovereign state. We have got a right to wherever we want to buy. And I think there are two reasons why, this China move has come, the extension of deadline. There are two rares in this, RARE. One rare is the rare earth minerals, because that has done a bit of arm twisting for Trump, because he knows 90% of these minerals, they come from China. So he's extended this deadline by another 3 months. He couldn't wait for a night for India, but he's willing to wait for another 3 months for China. And the second rare, Vineet, is, and I think this, I'm sure my diplomatic friends would understand, that the moment Prime Minister Modi declared his intentions of attending the SCO summit to be held by end of August, he made that move. That if you're trying to be friends with China, if you're going to get into the Chinese group or the Russia, China, India alliance or collab, whatever it is, then this is what I'll do. I'll extend my soft corner. I'll extend my hand to China as well, that look, I'm going soft on China. So China need not be very, very friendly with India. So there is utter political and diplomatic mix in this whole move, that there are two rare. So rare visit of Prime Minister Modi after 7 years, which is going to happen by the end of this month, and the rare minerals. So these are the two rares which has probably made him postpone what he's doing to China. But we also have a rare, Vineet, which is what I wanted to point out. Our rare is that India at this point controls the tech part of America. And the 6 million Indians there, if you take out these 6 million Indians and PIOs, they may be holding American passports now, but I call them PIOs. If you take them out of America, for that I know, because I have a lot of friends practically in every state, for that I know America is going to come to a standstill. America's digital footprint, America's online presence is going to be shaken if you take out the tech part of Indians from there. America's medical sector is going to be in turmoil if you take out the Indian doctors and the support of Indian generics and APIs or whatever, the system will collapse. So I think that is India's bargaining power. If rare earth minerals is China's bargaining point, India's bargaining point is the strong presence of the PIOs in America at this point of time. And these are the very people, Vineet, who shout Modi, 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 Modi after every sentence that Prime Minister Modi speaks at the stadiums there, when those meets, the famous meets are held. It is high time that those people should come together. So are the people in the White House. Some of the very prominent positions in the White House are held by Indians. The Second Lady of America is an Indian. This is the time for the Indianness within them to come out and submit a basic memorandum to Donald Trump that, look, what you're doing is not correct by any means. India is a natural ally. Why are you doing this to India? So I think I completely differ in my opinion as far as Professor Nalapat today is concerned, or Ambassador Goyal is concerned. I have no soft corner whatsoever, and I'm so glad that I was amongst the first people, Vineet, on your channel and some of the other media platforms to be very vociferous of what Donald Trump is doing. I even went to the news agencies like ANI, PTI, and I spoke to them, and I'm so glad that some of the very senior ministers in India, Mr. Rajnath Singh, the defense minister, a couple of days ago, he said that some people are getting a heartburn, I'm translating it to English, because of India's growth. The India's growth story is causing a heartburn to some people. Of course, he did not name the person, but we all knew who he's pointing out. We heard Nitin Gadkari, one of the most prominent ministers in the cabinet, speaking. We heard Prime Minister Modi indirectly referring that kisi ki dadagiri nahi chalegi. So I'm sorry, I completely resonate with that, and I completely differ from my previous two speakers for this moment, Vineet.
All right, Mr. Konapalli, where do you stand? In all this back and forth, this tug of war between India and America, is China going to be laughing its way to the bank?
Thank you, Vineet. A few fundamentals to start with. During the Trump first administration, the tariffs were imposed because in the last 2 decades, Mexico, Canada, and China had a lot of surplus trade with them. In terms of China, nearly $3 trillion of balance of payments position in favor of Beijing. So that was one where Trump used very colorful words to explain in his election campaign on China. Now, we have a new situation here, as has been mentioned. While the Chinese have a lot of surplus, and that contributed to the entire tariff wars that President Trump had initiated. He made that statement on November 25th last year, soon after he got elected, on the tariffs and the reciprocal tariffs, as well as retaliatory ones, given the Chinese connection to fentanyl, which kills nearly 1 lakh Americans a year. And in addition, the factor of illegal migrants. These are his electoral planks for which he tried to address these issues. Surplus trade other countries are having. India-US surplus trade is around $230 billion in the last, say, 15, 20 years. It's not really much. But the Chinese surplus trade with the United States is more than $3 trillion. That's where the heartburn actually is. And everybody else suffered because of this huge surplus the Chinese have been able to generate, for which actually the United States is to be blamed, because the Republicans and the Democrats, since the Clinton administration in the 90s, promoted the shift of industry to China. So much so, today there are 77,000 American companies functioning in China. Now, under the National Intelligence Law of 2017, China can ask for the blueprints of any one of these companies, not just the American, but also European, Japanese, Korean, or others. So this is what the Chinese are holding at this moment. So this is one trump card the Chinese have. The second, of course, as you mentioned, Vineet, the rare earth metals. On this issue, the United States is trying to generate their own rare earth metals. In the 90s, 92, 93, California used to produce substantial rare earth metals. But they wound up the whole process because the Chinese were producing at a cheaper rate. So we also used to produce a lot of APIs, but we gave it to the Chinese because the Chinese were supplying it at a very cheaper rate. So now the Ministry of Commerce, for example, like the American Department of Commerce, we are also now trying to generate these rare earth metals or the APIs in the case of India. So this is the plan B the Americans and Indians are trying to do. However, this will take time. The 90-day reprieve is because it takes nearly 2 to 3 months for the United States to produce these rare earth metals. And so the reprieve it has been given to the Chinese. The larger issue, of course, is that the agreement between China and the US is actually problematic for other countries because the actual situation had arisen because of the Chinese surplus with the United States. The Chinese also diverted a lot of these goods to Mexico and Canada, very less to Canada, but more to Mexico. Like what they used to do in the RCEP by putting up a factory in Laos, Cambodia, or Thailand or other places. They would divert these production to the United States. This is what Trump also had mentioned, that he will impose sanctions or rather tariffs on countries which are supplying the Chinese goods through their country's channels. So he had imposed these tariffs on Laos, Cambodia, 45% on Cambodia and Laos. That's because of the Chinese production in Laos and Cambodia. So I guess the whole dust will settle down after a while. And we will probably see more, US-China kind of competition emerging in this field. So that's number
Fair
one.
enough.
Number two, in the case of India, the 50% tariffs, 25 plus 25, I think this is the stress level test that we are going through. I don't think this is going to be permanent. But from an Indian perspective, I think the red line is on agriculture and the milk products. Because we have in Maharashtra, Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, Odisha, we have suicide deaths by the farmers. So if we import a lot of wheat or other citrus products from the United States, we are likely to see some tension in the agrarian society in India, which is where much of the electorate is also located, right? So that is the reason why we are putting this as a red line.
Fair enough, sir. Well, we've run out of time, but obviously, there is still not a consensus in terms of what's going to happen, what to make of this behavior by Donald Trump. I guess the only answer that we can all come to agree with is time will tell. We take a short break. We'll be right back.